My name is Robert. I'm 77 years old, and I'm about to tell you something I've never told anyone. Not my wife, not my children, not my closest friends. I've carried this secret for 53 years, and I'm finally ready to speak it out loud. I'm sitting here in my study, in the house I've lived in for 42 years. The walls are lined with photographs, my wedding day, my children's graduations, family vacations to places I was too tired to enjoy, grandchildren I barely know. Looking at these pictures, I should feel satisfied. I should feel like my life was well lived. Instead, I feel like a ghost looking at someone else's life. Let me take you back to 1971. I was 24 years old. I was young. I was hungry. I was alive in a way I haven't been alive since. I was a musician, not famous. I didn't need to be famous. I just needed to create. I played the guitar. I wrote songs. I performed at small venues on Friday nights. I had a band with 3 friends, my best friends. We called ourselves the Morning Light. I know, it sounds cheesy now. But back then, it felt like everything. We would practice in my garage until 2 in the morning. My mother would yell at us to turn it down. We didn't care. We were creating something. We were making art. I remember one night, I must have been 23, we played a small coffee shop downtown. Maybe 100 people came. When we finished our set, people stood up and clapped. They actually clapped. An older woman came up to me afterward with tears in her eyes. She said our music made her feel less alone. She said our song Broken Windows reminded her that pain could be beautiful. That moment, that single moment changed everything for me. I knew without a doubt that this was what I was supposed to do with my life. Not for money, not for fame, but because I could help people feel less alone. I could take my pain and transform it into something that mattered. That was my secret dream. That was what I was going to do. Then I met Susan. Susan was beautiful. She was kind. She was practical. She worked as a nurse. She had a good salary, a good 401k, good health insurance. When I met her at a party in 1972, I was completely drawn to her. Within a year, we were engaged. Within 2 years, we were married. Within 3 years, we had our first child. And somewhere in those 3 years, I made a decision, not deliberately, not with a conscious choice, but I made it anyway. I decided that being a musician was too risky, too unstable. What if we couldn't pay the mortgage? What if the band fell apart? What if I failed? What if I spent 10 years trying to make it as a musician and ended up with nothing to show for it? Susan was pregnant with our second child. We needed security. We needed stability. I needed a real job. So I took a position at an accounting firm. The pay was decent. The benefits were good. The work was mind-numbing, but it was safe. It was predictable. It was comfortable. I told myself it would be temporary, just until the kids were older, just until we had enough money saved, just until things stabilized. But just until became 1 year, then 5 years, then 10 years, then 20. Then 53 years. The band broke up after 2 years. My friend David, the drummer, my best friend, he stayed with music. He never became famous. He played in restaurants and hotel bars. He never got rich, but he kept playing. He kept creating. Last I heard, he was still performing, still writing songs, at 75 years old. My other friend, James, he went to law school. He became successful. But I ran into him about 15 years ago, and he told me he hated every minute of it. He said he should have pursued his dream of being a painter. He said the money wasn't worth the emptiness. And me? I stayed at the accounting firm for 43 years. I became a senior accountant. I made good money. We had a nice house. We took vacations. We paid for our children's colleges. We had financial security. But Susan, my wife of 54 years, she didn't know. She didn't know that every single day I was dying inside. She didn't know that I would sit in meetings, looking at spreadsheets, and feel like I was disappearing. She didn't know that at night, I would lie awake and think about the songs I never wrote, the stages I never performed on, the people I never helped feel less alone. I bought a guitar in 1985, thinking maybe I could play just for fun. I practiced a few times, but it hurt too much. Every note reminded me of what I'd given up. So I put it away in the closet. It stayed there for 38 years. My children grew up. They were good kids, but I wasn't really present for them. I was at work. I was tired. I was angry, though I didn't understand why back then. I was angry at them for existing because they represented the choice I'd made. They represented my sacrifice, and I was angry at myself for making that sacrifice. When my son turned 16, he asked me to teach him guitar. I said no. I told him it was too expensive. I told him it was a waste of time. The truth was, I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear teaching him the thing I loved most because it would remind me of my own failure. He never asked again. My daughter became a lawyer, like James. She makes good money. And 2 years ago, she told me she was depressed. She said she spent her days doing work that meant nothing to her. She said she wished she'd become a teacher instead. But by then she had a mortgage and a family, and it was too late. I didn't tell her about my secret. I just listened. And I felt like I was watching my own life repeat itself in her. The comfortable cage is invisible. That's what makes it so dangerous. You don't realize you're trapped until decades have passed. You don't realize it until you're old and it's too late to escape. That's what I want you to understand. That's why I'm telling you this now. Because comfort is a slow death. Security is a prison with very comfortable furniture. And by the time you realize you're unhappy, you've wasted the only life you were ever going to get. 5 years ago, I retired. I was 72 years old. I thought retirement would be a relief. I thought I would finally feel free. I thought maybe I could pick up the guitar again. Maybe I could finally do the things I'd always wanted to do. Instead, I felt nothing. When you spend 50 years not living, retirement doesn't magically fix that. It just gives you empty time to sit with all the regret. Susan and I had a good retirement plan. We had money, we could travel, we could do whatever we wanted. But Susan had her routines, she had her friends, she had her book club and her garden and her life that she'd built around my job. I had nothing. I would wake up at 6 in the morning out of habit. I would sit in the kitchen with my coffee, and I would feel completely, utterly alone. Even though Susan was sleeping upstairs, even though our house was full of furniture and photographs, I felt like I was the only person in the world. I started drinking, not heavily at first, just a glass of wine at lunch, then 2. Then by 4 in the afternoon, I'd already had 3 drinks. Susan noticed. She didn't say anything for a while, but eventually she said, "Robert, you're scaring me." That's when I should have told her. That's when I should have said, "I'm not scared of dying, Susan. I'm terrified that I've already died. That I died 50 years ago and I've just been going through the motions ever since." But I didn't say that. I just cut back on the drinking, and I got more depressed. I gained weight. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped leaving the house. I would spend entire days in my study, just sitting. Sometimes I would look at old photographs from the band days. I had a few. Pictures of us on stage. Pictures of me with a guitar in my hands, actually smiling, genuinely smiling, in a way I hadn't smiled since. One day, I found the old guitar in the closet. I don't even remember why I was looking in there, but I pulled it out. It was covered in dust. The strings were corroded. It was completely out of tune. I just stood there holding it, and I broke down. I sat on the floor of my study, and I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a child. I cried for all the years I'd wasted. I cried for all the songs I never wrote. I cried for all the people I never helped with my music. I cried for the person I could have been. Susan found me like that. She didn't ask questions. She just sat down next to me and held me. And I finally told her. I told her about the band. I told her about my dream. I told her that I'd spent 50 years resenting the life we'd built together, when really I was just resenting myself for being too afraid to fight for what mattered to me. I told her that I'd made a choice when I was 25 years old, and I'd spent the next 52 years blaming everyone else for that choice. Susan didn't say what I expected her to say. I thought she would be angry. I thought she would feel guilty for the role she played in my decision. Instead, she said something that changed everything. She said, "Robert, I didn't ask you to give up your dream. I didn't even know you had a dream because you never told me. You just decided, all by yourself, that your security was more important than your happiness. And then you spent 50 years punishing me for that decision." And she was right. That was the breaking point. That was the moment I finally saw clearly. I wasn't a victim of circumstances. I wasn't a victim of marriage or children or financial responsibility. I was a victim of my own cowardice. I had chosen fear over passion. I had chosen the comfortable lie over the risky truth. And then I'd blamed everyone around me for my choice. For the next year, Susan and I went to counseling. It was painful. We had to rebuild our entire relationship. She had to understand that my distance from her had nothing to do with her, and everything to do with my own unhappiness. I had to take responsibility for my choices. And something shifted. I started taking guitar lessons. I was 73 years old, and I started learning guitar like a beginner. My teacher was a woman named Maria, who was only 35. She never laughed at me. She just taught me, patiently, week after week. I wrote my first song in 30 years. It was terrible. It was so bad. But I wrote it anyway. I played it for Susan. She cried. I joined a community center band for people over 60. We practiced once a week. We weren't good. We were actually pretty bad. But we performed at a nursing home, and afterward, a woman came up to me, just like that woman had come up to me 55 years ago, and she said our music made her feel less alone. I was 74 years old, and I was finally living. But here's the thing about regret. It doesn't go away. It just transforms. I no longer wish I could go back and change the past. I can't, and that's okay. But I live every single day with the knowledge that I wasted 5 decades. 5 decades. That's 80% of my life. If I live to 90, I will have spent 90% of my life either living someone else's dream or recovering from that choice. That's what keeps me up at night now instead of the missing songs. My daughter finally quit her law job. She's 43 years old. She went back to school to become a teacher. She has less money now, but she smiles more. She's building the life she actually wants, and I'm proud of her. But I'm also angry at myself, because I could have shown her a different path. If I had followed my dream, maybe she would have had the courage to follow hers. My son never learned guitar from me, but he learned something else. He learned that it's never too late to regret your life, and it's also never too late to change it. He's teaching his own kids to pursue their passions, not their paychecks. I'm 77 years old now. I don't know how many years I have left, but I know that whatever time remains is precious, because I wasted so much of it. I'm telling you this story because I see so many people making the same choice I made. I see young people choosing careers based on salary instead of passion. I see parents sacrificing their dreams for their children's stability. I see people staying in jobs they hate because leaving would feel too risky. And I'm telling you that the risk of staying is far greater than the risk of leaving. When you choose comfort over passion, you don't actually gain comfort. You gain emptiness dressed up as security. You gain a slow, invisible death disguised as a safe life. I'm not saying money doesn't matter. I'm not saying you should be reckless. What I'm saying is that the cost of comfort, if that comfort comes at the expense of your soul, is far too high. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was 25. Your life is not a dress rehearsal. You don't get another chance. This is it, right now. This is your one life, and every single day you spend doing something that doesn't matter is a day you can never get back. I understand fear. I understand responsibility. I understand that you have people depending on you. I understand that taking risks is terrifying. But I'm telling you, from the perspective of someone who chose not to take the risk, that living with regret is more painful than any risk you could take now. The second thing I wish someone had told me: your dreams don't have an expiration date, but your life does. People tell you that if you don't achieve your dream by a certain age, it's too late. That if you're not a famous musician by 30, you should give up. That if you haven't written the great American novel by 40, you should just accept that it will never happen. That's a lie. It's a lie that society tells us to keep us compliant, to keep us in our jobs, to keep us producing and consuming and not asking too many questions about whether our lives actually matter. I started writing songs again at 73. I started performing at 74. I'm not a famous musician. I never will be. But I'm a musician. I'm an artist. I'm a person who creates things that matter to me and that help other people feel less alone. And I got to experience that, even if I only got to experience it for the last 4 years of my life. That's better than not experiencing it at all. The third thing: your choices are yours to make, not your parents', not your spouse's, not society's, yours. I spent 50 years blaming Susan for my choices. I spent 50 years resenting my children for existing. I spent 50 years acting like I was a victim of circumstances. But the truth is, I made a choice. A bad choice. A choice based on fear. And then I spent decades not owning that choice. If you choose comfort, own that choice. Don't spend 50 years resenting the people around you for a decision you made. If you choose to pursue your passion, own that choice too. Don't blame anyone else if it's hard or if you fail. Your life is your responsibility, not anyone else's. The fourth thing, and this is the most important: it's never too late to change. I changed at 72 years old. It's not ideal. I wish I'd changed at 25. But it was still worth doing. It's still worth doing. If you're 30 and you realize you made the wrong choice, change it. If you're 50 and you realize you wasted your 20s and 40s, change it. If you're 70, like I was, and you finally wake up, change it. Yes, you might be tired. Yes, there might be people who depend on you. Yes, it might be harder and more complicated than if you'd made the right choice when you were young. But the alternative is spending the rest of your life wishing you had. I'm leaving behind a lot of regret, but I'm also leaving behind a message. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're old. Don't choose comfort over passion. Don't spend 50 years waiting for permission to live your life. Because here's the secret I've been carrying all these years. The secret I'm finally revealing. The comfortable life is a lie. It promises you security, but it delivers emptiness. It promises you stability, but it delivers despair. The only security that matters is the security of knowing you lived. The only stability worth having is the stability that comes from building a life that's true to who you really are. I'm old now. My body is failing. My hair is gray. My hands shake sometimes. But for the first time in my life, I feel alive. I feel like myself. I feel like I'm finally home. And it only took me 53 years to get there. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait 53 years. Don't wait 50 years. Don't wait 5 years. Don't wait one more day. Look at your life right now. Look at what you're doing. Look at why you're doing it. Ask yourself, am I living this life because I want to, or because I'm afraid not to? If it's fear, change it. Change it today. Change it now. I'm Robert, and I'm 77 years old. And this is the biggest secret I've ever revealed. My life didn't really begin until I was almost dead. Don't let that happen to you. Your life is waiting for you. Go live it.